Hello and welcome to
Hey, we like your pod.
And we're going to tell you why. Hi, it's Dawn here, and I'm joined, as always, by my trusted partner, Matt Pickett. How you doing, Maddie?
I'm good. I'm really good. Just good things are happening here without getting into
Yes.
too much about it because it's all family stuff, but good family stuff. And
Yay.
apart from that, it's an easy part of the semester for me at work. The kids are great. The
Right.
only problem is it's freaking hot out still. It was like in the 90s today, which is silly. So that's my complaint. And then, of course, add on to that, an almost improbable win for the Packers this last weekend. That was just like a really fun, interesting, almost really old school kind of game to watch. So, plus we have this excitement about the possibility of like maybe the Packers could win this week and keep the season afloat. Well, Jordan comes back, and maybe Jordan will be back this weekend. Like, just a really fun time to be a Packers fan right now. So yeah, apart from the heat, I'm great. How are you doing, Don?
Yeah, well, that's why I named our episode today Hope Springs Eternal.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and I don't want Jordan to come back. I don't want Jordan Love to come back until, prematurely and get re-injured. Yes. So, excuse me, all of a sudden I'm coughing. So I don't know. I've got mixed feelings. I love the way they ran the ball. They can do that all year as far as I'm concerned. Winning ugly is still winning.
Still winning.
So, excuse my cough. Hello, Joe. It's good to see you in the chat. Yeah. So, we had a couple of time changes, and I didn't change the Twitter post. So I don't know if you got a chance to do that.
I just put a note in the comments like, hey, important update. We had the time wrong. That's my fault. Sorry about that. So
no worries. Yeah. So my week, I'm still I'm still wearing black until Jordan Loves comes back. Okay. But not just for the fun of it and whatever. It's not even a thing. But I was so emotionally, like, it was such a high and low. I think I mentioned that last week. But one of the things I don't remember if I mentioned, but that game in Brazil and my little outing, which was great fun, it seemed like, how when you're having fun and you're really into something, it's just like, boom, you blink and it's over. Mm-hmm. The other thing I loved about that night is it felt like everything was in slow motion, like everything lasted really long and lingered. Every moment, like every conversation, the food, everything was so great. And I'm not even going to all the crazy things that we were laughing about that were totally unrelated to football. That just things that happen when you're talking to a bunch of people. But it was slow motion, and I felt that way on Sunday. And so, starting out the week where you've just watched so much football that you don't even remember what you watched, I'm just so happy about that. Our little 1 week heat wave is gone. We always have a little bit of heat in this time of year in September and October. I didn't mention it because it's still kind of silly to mention it, but it was bad inland for a lot of people here. But we got up to, I want to say 89 one day, like a couple days in a row, and 86. So it was almost like a 5-day thing. Yeah, it was hot.
And that's really hot for you guys, I know. So
really hot. Yeah. And our sun is really hot. You know what I mean? So it's not just the air, but like if you go outside and you have that sun blasting on you, it's way hotter. So we got through that. I got through that. Now I'm cold. It's our normal 70, 72, and I'm shivering at night, which is really fun. So it feels like fall is in the air, is my point.
I wish I felt that way here.
I know. I didn't know you were still having. And they're talking about it being hot in Tennessee on the weekend for the game. Is that what I keep hearing that?
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, because that's like, honestly, that's not that far from here, really. It's a 4-hour drive. It's really not that far. So wouldn't be surprised. It's gross.
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like heat. Well, we're going to have a kind of an abbreviated as quick as we can because Matt has some family things and we've had some scheduling screw ups. So we're just going to do the best we can. So how about if I quick go first?
Sure. What do you got, Don?
Well, first of all, thanks to everybody from my true crime show that is constantly sending me clips or articles about NFL players in the true crime world.
Nice.
And so it's not always. Let me see which one I have this under. Sorry. Yeah, I have this under the superlative good to know. So most good to know, I guess. And just really briefly, this is about Tyreek Hill and what happened with him. Whoop, did not mean to play it. To Tyreek Hill and what happened to him before the game in Miami. And I just want to shout out to Melba. She's one of the co-hosts of True Crime MTN. It's an extension of the MTN. It's just a really popular kind of but this is just true crime. Okay, and she has a really short, I think maybe not even 20 minutes long. It's titled "Whoa, Officers Past Resurfaces After Tyreek Hill Incident." And so good to know that some of these officers, there was some scuttlebutt about it, but she's an actual lawyer and she's highly regarded. And she talks about, I think it's 50 previous write-ups that this officer has had. He's on leave right now. Yeah, paid leave, but I hope he's gone. But yeah, it's pretty scary. It's not fair. And she drew the contrast between what happened with Tyreek Hill and that golfer a while back who actually drove away with a cop basically hanging out his window and didn't even get charged. So the charges were dropped and they apologized to him. And it's maddening. When it happened, I was just like, you got to be kidding me. I mean, maybe it was warranted, but when you see the comparison. Yeah. So I really am shouting out and I love that show because of their true crime coverage as well. So yeah. So true crime meets and NFL. And I'm going to, let's see which this one is. I'm going to quick do a superlative. I've been putting my superlatives on the wrong documents for the last 2 weeks. So I finally found them. So here's another one. It's about a week and a half old, but I said this is the most ado about nothing. And this goes to Rich Eisen, who I love watching. But he did a piece which is very informative. It was about 15 minutes about excuse me, Tom Brady possibly having some ownership of the Raiders and what that would do to his position with I forgot which Fox. And so the NFL was going to put some restrictions on him. And I was surprised because Rich Eisen is really probably way smarter than I am and all that. But I was kind of taken aback by his position that, why don't they just trust Tom Brady? I wouldn't. It's business. Like it's
business. Yes.
You can't let him into the locker rooms of other teams if if he did it unintentionally. And we know Tom Brady's past too, but that's why there's laws. That's why we have, stop signs.
Yeah,
right.
Seriously, right.
We can't just trust everybody, to stop. So I thought that was surprising that he took that attitude. So I don't know what that was all about, but it just kind of threw me off. And then speaking of Rich Eisen, I've mentioned a new podcast from last year. It's called What the Football instead of what the and it's Susie Schuster, who's married to Rich, and Amy Trask, who I adore from the Raiders. I think she was the previous, I want to say GM, but she had a very high up position. And they had a conversation on their most recent podcast. I think it was either today or yesterday. They had Steve Young on also. And I'm calling this Most Elevated because this conversation was so fantastic, Matt. I hope you get a chance to listen to it. It spanned all kinds of different topics, everything, not the normal talk about Tua, but in a depth, like a lot of people, you're going to hear, well, it's a big financial decision and he's going to lose $58 million if he walks away. And they were talking about things at a different level, like, well, if and Amy said, football teams don't want him to play if he's going to be risking his life. They really don't. Even though they're big business and all that. But also at the same time, the framework of these contracts and the way the teams have it is such that he's so incentivized to continue playing because he walks away with nothing if he walks away.
Mm-hmm.
So why not give him something so that it's not like an all or nothing deal for him, right?
Yeah.
He's a very highly, and I can't remember, I think he's like super highly educated and can go on. It's not like he's going to be poor, but it was just a really cool conversation. Steve Young also talked about, hey, he coaches flag football for his girls teams. Okay. I don't know if his grades, he didn't go into, I wasn't paying attention to the detail, but he was talking about how football is really a girl's sport.
Okay.
Because of the way it's choreographed and such. And Amy and Susie, and I never really thought that because of all the, hitting, but they play flag football. Well, he told this little story about how they were in the stands last weekend or something for one of the games, and his wife saw these two older women way up in the stands, and she, went over to say hi and who are you watching? And they're like, we don't know anybody. We're just here because when we were this age, we couldn't play football. Mm-hmm. And the way they talked about it, I was like crying. Everybody was so choked up. They did a much better job. But yeah, and then they talked about, this was really like a short, it wasn't a super long video podcast, but another one was the topic this is near and dear to my heart, which is if you have the first pick in the draft and you haven't traded up, and you're the worst team, right? And you're getting the best player, and how that sets up, this was on the topic of Caleb Williams and being set up not for success, right? Because he was sacked so many times. And I have some more Caleb Williams things, but I'm going to keep it short. I had a whole category just on Caleb Williams that spanned the, fun and serious and all of that. So, but yeah, so I'd call that most elevated, good to know, and much ado about nothing. Most ado about nothing. Those are my superlatives.
Nice. Yeah, I'm really excited to hear the thing you're talking about there, the conversation with Amy Trask et al. Like, that sounds really awesome. So I can't wait to hear that.
Yeah, it was just so good. And I don't know how many people listen to their podcast, but they don't have many people listening to them on YouTube. So that's where I catch it. So yeah, nice. I would definitely recommend that one.
And again, what's the name of the podcast?
What the Football?
What the Football? Okay, that's right. It was something kind of funny though. That's what it was. Okay.
And you can find it if you are looking under the Rich Eisen show on YouTube, which is where I catch his show. You can find it under there. It's one of his shows. Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, Dawn, I have three superlatives as well. The one that has just really stuck with me this whole week, I'm going best story on this one, is a piece that Bill Huber wrote. So we know that, Josh Myers puked on the football, and that's been like the big meme all week, and people are talking about it and everyone's laughing about it. But the thing is, like, okay, that's gross. Like, no doubt about it. Like, the clip has been circulated, like, it's gross. But here's the thing, right? It's not as simple as like somebody did something gross, because what was going on here is like, it was I think the second hottest game in like franchise history, first of all, so super hot day. Second of all, sort of the nerves of like the home opener, but third, and I think most importantly, is that Josh Myers' dad recently passed. And so like to be at the home opener and thinking about his dad, and this is still really fresh for him, it's just like it was a lot kind of coming out, if you will. So yeah, Bill found out about this because he was kind of going through the locker room, doing interviews like the beat reporters do, and saw basically, let's see, he said, I'm just going to read Bill's words here from the article. He said, afterwards, as Myers took the braces off his knees, LaFleur stopped at his locker. They embraced, they talked, they embraced again, they talked some more, they embraced again. So, Bill's like, what's going on over here? So he kind of came over and started talking to Josh Myers about it. And that's when Josh said, it's been a lot lately with my dad. And like, just thinking about like what it would mean to him to see, because he played really well, on Sunday, like what would it mean to him to see like what he did, and how he was such an important part of the run attack that was obviously like the majority of the game plan in the game. So it was just all of that, like I said, coming out, at that moment. And yeah, it makes it this like funny clip and people are laughing about it and stuff, but like it really is like amazing, emotional, like poignant, sort of like backstory behind it. And like I just so appreciate Bill for like finding that out, like reporting about it to like bring some real like humanity to this thing that otherwise just seems like gross and silly or whatever, So like just that's been thinking about it all week, it really touched me, I think is what I'm trying to say. So excellent writing from Bill, excellent reporting and investigating and telling the story. So that was just exceptional. So that one is going to be best story. My second one then is coolest stat. So we love stats. We've talked about stats and figures, and there's a new stat out there, Dawn, and I'm excited about it. It's a little silly and it's a little awesome. It's a lot awesome. It's called Calculator. Okay. So this is Paul Noonan has developed his own. It's called Calculator, which stands for the Comprehensive Analysis of League Competition Using Latest Analytics to Organize Rankings. So a little silly, but what is he doing with this? Well, basically he's taking every advanced stat he has available and data based on net point differential and the current Super Bowl odds for the teams based on what they have in FanDuel. Some formulas to kind of smooth it all out, and then a rating that is going to be like roughly 0 to 100 for a given team, but it's not quite like reined in by that. And in fact, even after 2 weeks, the Panthers are at a negative point value. Ooh. I think it's their first week. I think it's a negative point. I think right now they're at like a 0.4 or something like that, like out of roughly 100. So like it's they're having a rough time. Not a football team right now.
Yeah.
But so because that's the thing, like when we think about how do you rank football teams, how do you really like look at all the components to really do a good power ranking? Like it feels like a lot of it's vibes, and that's when you look at like different commentators and writers power rankings, they're never the same 1 through 32. There's always a lot of room for disagreement and debate and everything else. So what Paul Noonan is trying to do here is like, let's actually make this as data driven as possible. And so I'm really fascinated to see like how this develops, because he's only 2 weeks in using it, of course. So just to see like how accurate, as maybe not the right word, but just kind of what results it'll give as the year goes on. So very excited to watch that every week on acmepackingco.com. Make sure to check
that
out.
Love that. I missed it. That's good.
I should say it is actually acmepackingcompany.com. So I just to make sure I have that correct. But yeah, no, I mean another great innovation from Paul Noonan, who is just one of the best out there. So check that out, folks. And then my third one I have is, and this is a superlative title. Don, I only reserve this for very specific things. The superlative title is best. Woo! This only comes up when Tom Grassi does something amazing. That's kind of what it's reserved for. So this week saw the premiere of Tom Grassi's new show, Chaotic Good Sports. This show is going to be, I think, weekly. It's a fundraiser every time it's on. So this week he interviewed Brandon Bostic, who of course, has a certain sort of place with the Packers fandom. And so the thing about Brandon Bostic, though, if you know his story since like, the 2014 NFC Championship game and the terrible ending, is that he went through a lot with just, the self torment he inflicted on himself, from, I hate to say like screwing up the game and like losing it, because like it was a lot of things that led up to it. And if any one of those things didn't happen the way it did, we wouldn't be like looking at Brandon Bostic as like this, figure of derision. So, but he talked about, the mental health struggles he's gone through, how he's come on the other side of it, how it's, it's never a thing you really like, completely are free of. And so the work that he does to try to educate people around mental health issues, Brandon Bostic's an amazing person. So like, if you don't know his story, this is a great place to go and listen about it, because he's definitely like somebody who is willing to make himself vulnerable to talk about this stuff. And Tom is such a good, sensitive person and just a really good interview in the first place.
Right.
It's an hour of amazing content. It's raising funds for a good cause. Tom Grassi, man.
I know.
I got no words.
I know. Buddy, he's the best. We're so lucky to have him. Yes.
And so you just had a kid in the background there. So yeah,
I love that. The best, awesome. best.
Yeah, highly recommended.
Fantastic. That's fantastic.
So that's what I got for this week, Dawn.
Oh, Maddie, that's fantastic. Well, we're going to let you go because we know you're in charge of kids right now. Oh, there's one.
Kid popping in screen here. That's right.
Well, let's bring her home, Maddie, and let you get on with your important evening. And I hope, by the way, that Kara has the best day ever tomorrow.
Yes, it is my wife's birthday tomorrow. It's true. So,
yes.
All right. Friends, we'd love to have a chance to interview you and shout you out if you're a subscriber and a football fan. If you'd like to nominate someone to be a guest on our podcast, please let us know. Our DMs are open on all the social platforms. And folks, when you subscribe to our podcast, you help us to keep spreading the love in our community. And the best way to help this podcast grow is by sharing it with your friends and family.
Yes, Maddie, that's right, because we love you. We're so glad to know you, to be fans of you, and have the luxury of being fans of the most storied team in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
We appreciate your support, your subscriptions, and sharing our pod, and we look forward to seeing you next week on
Hey, we like your pod.
Football in general comes down to discipline and people owning their roles. And when you aren't disciplined or you go outside the scheme, bad stuff happens.